Sorry, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Real Talk Show. Glad you're here. Today's topic is going to be mental health and how young people can deal with stress and anxiety. And this is a continuation of our previous topic, which we had last week, which was understanding adolescents and young people. On today's show, I'm joined with my co-host, Faith Malambo. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Just give a brief introduction about yourself.
Hi guys, good afternoon, and thank you for joining.
I think Faith is having internet challenges. Just moving on. So Faith Malambo is my co-host today, and she's also a youth representative. And today's topic on mental health and young people and how young people can deal with stress and anxiety. I'm joined with Mr. Darius Chama, a psychologist and therapist. Welcome, Darius. Can you just give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do before we jump into the topic of the day?
All right, thank you so much. I'm Darius Chama, as it has been, as my colleague has already mentioned, and I'm a psychotherapist in clinical practice. So I offer consultants, mental health consultant services, and of late, I've been working so much closely with uh, rehabilitation centers. So I offer psychotherapy to people who are in rehabs, and basically consultant services to the rehabs. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Darius. Um, this how nowadays the topic has been shifted towards young people, their mental health. To begin with, what are some of the most significant pressures you see impacting the mental well-being of young people?
All right. Quite many, but we can talk about a few. So there is academic pressure. There is lack of employment or unemployment, financial pressure. So there are some people who are employed, but they're having financial struggles. Then there are society expectations, where a society would like you to live a certain way. The society wants you to have had achieved certain things at a particular age or at a particular stage in life. Family expectations, family responsibilities. Not to say that having a responsibility is bad, but there is a way in which most of these family responsibilities will have a heavy toll on young people. So, just to mention a few there.
Okay. So talking about such pressures, unemployment rates, the cost of living, family responsibilities, just too much pressures affecting young people. Would you say just would you compare this to the older times, how the pressures were back then? Because I'm sure things are still the same. And how did people cope differently back in the day? And what's different in today's day and age?
Okay, so I'm also under the assumption, before I answer your question, I'm also under the assumption that when you say pressures that young people are dealing with, I'm under the impression that you're not talking about the different mental health challenges or different mental disorders, right? So if it's mental disorders or different mental illnesses, mental health challenges, we can talk about that. But coming back to your question, how we can compare our present day with the days in the past. Is it the same? How different is it? And how were they coping then? And how we're coping? I would say that uh, our society keeps evolving. All right, and that's those are the characteristics of culture. Our societies, our socialization keeps evolving. So I'll give an example, and this was common even when I was growing up. When I was growing up, during our holidays, we used to be taken to the villages. Okay, where I would experience village life, and even before going to the village, I remember growing up in Livingstone. We used to have a lot of traditional or a lot of cultural practices that I think, no, actually, this is even research backed, but practices like going hunting. Okay, you go hunting for rabbits, hunting, different wild animals with dogs. Now, such are practices that people of old that helped people of old cope with most of their challenges, because most of our challenges make disturb the mind. All right, they make you should I say, they freeze your thinking. You get stuck. You feel like you're not like, as if something has got your mind stuck. Okay, but imagine whatever you're going through at a particular time, you go out hunting. Okay, and when you go in the bush, in most cases you not take anything below an hour or less than an hour. In most cases you take more than an hour, and just that adventure of looking for, getting into caves, getting into the thicket of the bushes that are there, running away from snakes that you probably you bump into, chasing after any wild animal that you see. Now all that was one of the ways that we use to relieve ourselves of whatever we could be going through. And I'm not saying this to sound like I'm an old person. Like I mentioned, I was young, but I used to mostly follow my elder brothers. And interestingly, even old people would go hunting, because sometimes we'd bump into people who were our father figures in the bush, with their dogs hunting for these wild animals. Similarly, when we went to the villages. Okay, at the village, our uncles would have some traditional guns that they would use whenever they would go hunting, and such offered an opportunity for the people of back in the days to cope. All right, yeah. Number one, it was helping them, distract themselves from whatever could be troubling them in the moment. Number two, it was, when the body is active, when you are running, you're chasing after an animal, or maybe you're running away from maybe a snake, and just that creativity that comes with that, the body produces, happy hormones. Okay, when the body is active, it produces happy hormones, so it helps people cope. Apart from that, in the villages, there would be things like sitting around the fire, where you'd have, folk tales, okay, stories. You'd talk about this and that experiences, and that helped people cope with these things. Of course, I'm not saying that the olden days had the best coping mechanism, but I'm just trying to show you how certain practices that are now almost are not there, or people barely practice, uh, how those practices really helped people of the days in the past. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just to echo what you're saying, how connecting with nature and studies have shown reduce our cortisol levels. It's a hormone that's associated with stress. So when the more time we spend with nature, the less our mental stresses, the less mental fatigue we have. And by the example of how people used to interact and go hunting and do just activities helps reduce their stress levels. So I think most young people, including myself, what we suffer with and in this day and age is social media, the gadgets have been a huge, huge distraction. And that denies us the opportunity to be able to interact with nature and just have, because when God was creating nature, he made sure it was like a stress reliever for humans. So
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen,
Just on that, before maybe we get to the next thing.
absolutely.
um I yeah. So I was saying, before we get to the next thing, now, just on that, I like the example you've given. Brilliant. Now, we notice that people from overseas come all the way to our country to come and pay for what we can access without paying. All right. Most of these Western countries do not even have bushes as we have them. I know, of course, when we talk about adventure, wildlife adventure, or nature adventure, in most cases people think it's always places where you need to spend a lot of money on, like going to Siavonga, going to Mfue, going to Samfia. Well, if you have the money, excuse me, If you have the money, if you have the resources, it's okay, you can do that. But when it comes to experiencing the beauty or the blessing of nature, you do not even need to go as far as that. It can be as simple as any bush. Like, I'll give an example where I am here. I'm in the rural west of Kabwe, all right, and it's a nice environment. There's fresh air. Just taking a walk in the bush, maybe for 10 minutes and coming back. There's a way it makes one feel better, and I keep doing this every day. I take a walk, 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers, and I'm back home, and always there's just the way I feel. And these are some of the things that most of us who are in cities, like big cities like Lusaka, the Copper Belt, provinces like Copper Belt, you're just busy in your offices, busy in your industry, and you never take time for this. This is the reason why over time we accumulate a lot of stress, all right, which lead to a lot of psychological and physiological disorders or challenges, which in return will makes us live lives that not fulfilling. You even fail to deliver in your workspaces. You fail to be a proper a proper parent or a good husband, not because you do not have the inherent capability of becoming one, but because what should enable you has been compromised, and you can't even thrive in what you should be thriving at.
Well, that is a very good point there. Sorry, I joined in quite early, quite late, but I just have a question with regards to what you have said and what Hegel has said. We're talking about stress. So then you gave an example of how stress was handled way back, sitting around the fire, storytelling, and all that. But then bringing it down to our generation, how can stress be handled in young people and the teenagers? Because fireplaces is a hard thing to get, and very few of them have the privilege to have their grandmothers and tell them stories. And I did hear you at first talking about social media being one of the attributes of stress and anxiety in young people. So without the social media and the phone aspect, what can the young people indulge in to reduce on stress and anxiety, because that is something that they are going through. So what can they do in replacement of fires and the old ways of getting rid of stress as young people?
Okay, so as we are discussing this, and I would want to appeal to the listeners to get the concept. So when I talk about, for example, the fire, I'm not prescribing that as the only, solution to say when you're stressed, you have to go to the village and look for a fireplace. No. So let me give you an example. What did the fireplace or sitting around the fire, what did it offer? It offered uh, a platform for people to feel heard, to feel seen, and to feel validated, right? Yeah. Sitting at the fire, having those stories, and asking grandpa, asking uncle, asking aunt, asking grandma, asking all those people, have being able, because I remember in my case, we would every one of us was required to say something. Okay, we were not. It was not allowed to leave the fireplace without saying something. So each one of us had the opportunity to say something. So whenever we left that fireplace, we left those fireplaces having felt heard, having felt seen, having felt validated, having felt understood. Now, even if you do not have the fire, even if you do not have grandpa, even if you do not have family figures, I've said, you need to find a platform, a safe space where you can do this. Of course, the number one recommended safe space, or a place where you can open up such, is a professional space where you've got a psychotherapist like myself, or others that you may go to. That's number one. Then number two, you need to have friends who you are able to open up to. I know it's hard. We live in a world that is judgmental. We live in a world where people do not keep things to themselves. You open up about something, they end up telling someone else about it. I know we have got those challenges, but I believe not all is lost. There are some people who are still noble people. who've got integrity. There are people who would have your back. So you need to find that person or those people that you can open up to. All right. Yeah. Have some moments as men, as ladies, to just talk about what you're going through. I always say this. Uh, Instead of spending time to discuss people, all right, to discuss, no, that one, now have you heard this one is pregnant, or this one is going out with that one, oh, did you hear that one failed this, or is now broke? Why not spend time to talk about yourself? In fact, what I've noticed is most people who love talking so much about others, all right, my personal observation is that most of those people are miserable people, because in a way they want to talk about their problems, but they don't know how, or they don't have a space to bring those out, so they just end up talking about how the problems of others. So find a safe space, all right, find a safe space to talk about these things. And then also, um fellowship is good. It can be a church fellowship, it can be a former students association fellowship, maybe people used to learn with. You can have a reunion. Such things are good. They're the way they help you to deal with your stress. Apart from that, involve yourself in some sports. It can be soccer, it can be basketball, it can be anything that will make your body run, all right, anything that will make your body run, anything that will make um your body release some stress. Sorry, I'm just having a challenge. Just let me just correct it.
Okay. All right. Anyway, that's what I wanted to hear. Nigel, you can carry on. I don't know where exactly the question was coming from. I just joined in a little bit late, but I wanted to be clear
Um,
on that because maybe somebody had a question out there to say, we
yes,
don't have this. So what can I do as a young person that is going through this moment? I can't go back to he gave that example. I just wanted to relate to say, if you're a young person and you're going through stress or you feel you're anxious about something, there is always a
yes,
certain space that you can go to, and such spaces,
yes.
like he has mentioned, get yourself involved and be active in a way. Find a person to talk to. You can't, it's not all the people that believe in best friends, but you can have a close friend just that you can pour out your heart and feel a little bit better. I feel when you hold things, they get to be so painful, but when you get them out, it becomes so easier. I don't know what you think about. That was the only
I think
clarity I needed.
I think you've both highlighted it very well, yourself and Darius. And a good example is during the COVID era when there were lockdowns. I don't know how it was in your country, but in my country, Kenya, we were not allowed to leave like certain regions, and we also had to be there were curfews at around 7 p.m. So this really confined people, and at some point we felt very frustrated because you're confined, you're not able to relate or interact with other humans apart from maybe those you live with. And this also gave birth to a whole new era of guys connecting online and just that interaction and the feel of just talking to someone and just being able to share what you have. And then when restrictions were eased and we're able now to interact with people even using masks, it was so much better, and you could see the huge difference with how humans love that interaction amongst each other. So when we shield ourselves from having those social interactions, then definitely
Yeah.
we just automatically get mentally stressed and exhausted.
Sorry.
Yes, welcome back.
Okay. He's back.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Welcome
saying
back.
my gadget started heating up, so it warned
No
me
problem.
that I need to connect it to something. I don't know if are you having some echo or some sort?
Um, I think so far it's
It
okay,
is.
but as we go on, I'll let you know. But as we just proceed, so you're just talking about how young people can use different avenues to relieve their stress. But before we continue, this word stress and anxiety is easily thrown out. I'm stressed, I'm anxious. But just could you kindly elaborate on how these pressures can manifest as stress and anxiety in our daily lives? What does this mean to be stressed? What does it mean to suffer from anxiety? Just in layman language.
Okay. So the difference between stress and anxiety is as follows. Stress is when your body or your mind is uh, is bearing more than it can handle. All right. When your body or the mind are bearing more than they can ordinarily handle. Okay, so that's stress. Now, in an ideal situation, stress is usually temporal, right? It fades out with time, all right, or as the situation, as the trigger goes away, or as the trigger calms down. But now with anxiety is the persistent fear. Okay, persistent fear that usually comes without any immediate threat. Okay, yeah, without any immediate threat. So that is where the difference is. Yeah, so anxiety can actually be stressful. Maybe let me put it that way. Anxiety can be stressful. The common thing about anxiety and stress is that in both situations, or both, they elicit stress hormones. That's cortisol and adrenaline. Right. Yeah. So that's it. So stress can be maybe school pressure. All right, the pressure at school, assignment after assignment, okay, quizzes, this and that. Then anxiety can be manifested in anxiety can be manifested in something that maybe happened to you, or something you're afraid will happen, and because your mind is hell bent on believing that it will happen, it ends up magnifying that, even if the problem is not as big as it is manifesting in your mind. So now, because of that, you begin living. Okay, you begin living under the shadow of that worry. Remember, I said anxiety is the persistent worry that comes without any immediate threat, right? So here you are, you've done at work. Let's give an example of work. All right, there's some work that you've been given, and you've not finished doing it. Okay, and your bosses require the report. Okay, or you've been given to work on something, and you've looking at the cost, the load of work you have. All right, you come to realize that you probably not be able to finish it. So that panic that comes with the worry that comes with the anticipated failure, the anticipated fear, all right, or whatever you are worrying about, is what anxiety is.
Mhm. Okay. Right. That was quite an explanation out there. Just a reminder to our viewers, those who are listening to us, it's a beautiful Friday afternoon. And if you're just joining in, please don't forget to drop in your comments and contribution on the down section below and tell us what you think about mental health in young people. And the discussion at hand, we're talking about anxiety and stress. Now, getting to that, Mr. Darius, I have a very interesting question. Now, many other times or statistics have shown that young people, teenagers, adolescents, including the elderly people, they are going through stress and anxiety. I think even me at some point, I could be a victim of anxiety because sometimes you just feel like, oh my God, what are they going to say when I do this? How are they going to react? Anxiety kicks in. And in young people, it's probably a feeling that they can't comprehend or get to understand because why am I feeling like this? How can I get out of this? And others, it becomes a burden of the day, especially even at school. Now, what can help one, notice the early warning signs of anxiety and stress in young people? Because some of them won't come out and say this is what I'm going through, but they are going through it. Through their actions, you will see it has led to one thing or the other, leading to mental, disorders and whatnot. So, Mr. Darius, how can you get the early warning signs that your child is undergoing stress or anxiety?
Okay, so insomnia. There are some people who celebrate insomnia. They would say, "Team no sleep." Insomnia is a serious, serious red flag. So do not celebrate insomnia if you are not able to initiate sleep or sustain sleep. Okay, that could be a sign you're stressed or you're experiencing anxiety. Then heart palpitations, all right? Heart palpitations, panic attacks, short, when you feel like you're losing breath, you know, as if you're losing, like you're breathing, but you feel like you're losing breath and it's persistent. Yeah, and then also for behavioral symptoms, you find that somebody never used to drink and they begin drinking all of a sudden. Chances are that they could be experiencing stress or anxiety, and so they're using that as a coping mechanism. Okay, or those who drink, but now they are drinking excessively. They are drinking more than their usual drinking habit. Yeah, so that could also be another symptom, behavioral symptom of anxiety. Then also anxiety and stress. Then also hypersexual disorder. Here's somebody who is now take note. I've said hypersexual. I'm not saying if you have sex then you are stressed. No, I'm saying hypersexual disorder. Since hypersexual disorder is basically a situation where you can't control your sexual behavior. Okay, you sleep around like you depend on sex for you to survive. Okay, yeah, so some people use sex as a coping mechanism. Yeah, so alcohol, drugs, hypersexual behavior, um, yeah, and then also isolation. Okay, here is somebody who interacts and then all of a sudden they begin to withdraw. All right, yeah, they begin to isolate themselves, they begin to withdraw from people. So that could be a sign that they're going through some stress.
Just
Yeah, and then also on yeah.
okay. I wanted to get clarity on just your current point that you've raised to say when you see your child behavior changes, they were drinking, they start drinking excessively. But there are those children, we would call them introverts, where even on their normal day-to-day life, it's hard to tell whether they are sad or they are happy. They are just introverted. And these are kids that you find even in schools or classrooms, they are always isolated in a way. So for such a child, how do you get to the depth of knowing to say something is wrong in their quiet space?
Okay, so what I was giving you are things that are obvious to the eyes, things that you can clearly see that okay, this person could be having this challenge. However, this does not mean that everything can be seen. So this is where professional help comes in. Okay, so where the eyes fail, professional help will come in. This is the reason why we encourage, as a psychologist in clinical practice, I'll tell you that you need to see a professional every 3 months, every after 3 months. So meaning once every quarter. So in a year, whether you're an adult, whether you're a teenager or whatever, you need to have an audience with a professional so that they can be able to see. And then also sometimes, you know, the way it is with stress and anxiety, sometimes you could be stressed and you do not know. You know, you could be going through some rough patch, and you know, because we were a society that masks our problems so much, you could be masking it and you don't know, you know, business as usual. Okay, I'll give another example. There's some people who have ended up being workaholics. Okay, for them they don't rest. The only time they rest is when the body is completely tired and the body now shuts down on its own. They are always busy from one activity to another in the name of being productive. Yes, they could they could hide under productivity, but maybe the actual problem is they're stressed, they're depressed, they've got anxiety. So a professional is able to see those blind spots. All right, we've got assessment tools who assess you using our assessment tools, and they'll give you expert opinion. Then also another thing, if let's say you before you see a professional, it's important to have honest conversations. Now this is very important, not just as parents but also as peers, as friends. Let's have conversations beyond a simple how are you. Okay, you know, when I ask you, Madam Malambo, to say how are you, the default answer, even when, let's say, you are busy, you're writing an essay or you're writing a very, stressing report, you're busy, you're not even concentrating at whatever I'm saying. Chances are 99.9 that you're going to just say, I'm fine. Okay, and then I'll walk away because you've said I'm fine. But the truth is, we need to have honest, legit, and in-depth conversations where we will ask people beyond a simple "How are you?" All right. When somebody says "I'm fine," look at them in the eyes and say, "Are you really okay?" And trust me, if they're not okay, you'll be able to see through them. You'll be able to see through their answer to say this person, even if they've said they are okay, really they're not okay. Okay, yeah. So in short, let's have these conversations. Let's have a non-judgmental attitude towards people. When somebody tells you they're not fine, or they show you that they're not fine, even if they've not outrightly said it, give an empathetic answer. Say something like, in case you'd like me to be of help in any way, let me know how you'd want me to be of help, or I'll be here in case you want somebody to talk to. I'll be here to offer you a shoulder. So things like this will help you it will help you access what the eyes are probably likely to fail to access.
Thank you so much, Darius. You've really highlighted on such things that we faced, and I was actually going to ask you this question, but you perfectly answered it. I was going to ask how young people who face these challenges, what words of encouragement would you offer them? And I know if you're facing insomnia, heart palpitations, as you mentioned, panic attacks, loss of breath, drinking problems, or hypersexual disorder, or even isolation, the first step is to have candid conversations with yourself that you're going through a certain problem. And secondly, is also to get a clinical psychologist who has, the right and proper tools to guide you through this. And just before we step into our next questions, we have a few messages from our viewers, and I'll start with Mutiti Motofwe saying, "Good afternoon. Thank you for bringing up such a real and important topic. As a young person trying to build a future, start something meaningful, and figure life out step by step, anxiety and stress really hit hard, especially when things feel uncertain. How do I tell the difference between normal pressure and actual anxiety? Sometimes I push through without realizing I'm mentally drained." How would you be able to um, respond to our viewer, Mutiti? Over to you, Darius.
All right. So one thing I forgot to mention when I was differentiating. One thing I forgot to mention when I was differentiating anxiety from stress, or defining the two, was that both anxiety and stress are normal human emotions. All right. So do not think when we talk about stress is a bad thing in itself. No. All right. So stress is a body alarm that just tells you to say you are now lifting, you're now carrying more than the body can manage. All right. So it's a normal body or emotional response. Same applies with anxiety. Anxiety is a way the body and the mind tells you to be careful. Okay, especially of something that looks like what happened in the past. Okay, let's say you were bitten by a snake. So the body will always make you worry persistently when you get closer to anything that looks like what you went through. So anxiety and stress in themselves are not a bad thing. Now, at what point does anxiety and stress, at what point do they become bad or something that you should be concerned about? Number one, if they interfere with your normal life functioning. All right. So, for example, worrying is not a problem. It's normal. It's human. But if your worry makes you, it compromises your human, your day-to-day functionality, then it's a problem. Okay, failing to concentrate on work. There was a time I remember I was at the deadline to doing my to finishing my assignment, my master's assignment was fast approaching. I think I just had 2 days remaining. And I was so anxious, so worried that I ended up doing nothing. Some people will be like, okay, let me try, and wherever I'll end at, I'll submit the work. But for me, I ended up doing nothing. Now, that is a problem. If your anxiety interferes with your day-to-day functionality, that's a problem. Okay, if it affects your sleep, if it affects if it affects your peace, it's a problem. Then also, if it's persistent, number one, number two, number three, and then number four, if it comes too often, that should be a problem. Okay, yeah, I'll give an example. Anxiety is persistent worry that happens even without immediate threats, but this thing keeps coming. Okay, there's no snake. Yes, the snake beat you last year, but there's no snake. And every now and then you feel like there's a snake nearby, and you jump, you panic, you freak out. That should be a problem. So it should not be persistent, and it should not be too frequent. Okay, if it's persistent and too frequent, then you should worry and look for a solution.
All right. Now, quickly, we're going to go to the next comment from our text messages from the people that are following us, and I see that most of them are questions. So basically, we're going to do this in the fastest way possible that we can, looking at the amount of time that we had. So the second comment was coming from Linda, and Linda says, "Greetings. I will appreciate if you could shed light on stress and anxiety management techniques as young men and women. We normally go through a lot of ups and downs, ranging from family issues, friends, school, and religion, etc. Sometimes life hits so hard that some options to misuse drug and alcohol as a way of escaping reality, stress, and anxiety." So this one is requesting for management techniques. I don't know on the few that you've mentioned. If there's any, then we can quickly go on to the few questions that we have before we finally get to wind up. Mr. Darius has dropped.
So Faith, just any
Hello?
back.
Okay, he's there. Did you get the question or I go through it again?
No, I got it. I got it. Yeah. So management techniques for anxiety. Now, maybe let's like I said, let's address the principle. Why do most people rush to alcohol or drugs, looking to deal with their anxiety and stress? In most cases, the reason is because the alcohol, the drugs will numb, will numb their mind, will numb their central nervous system, such that they'll not feel that pressure they would ordinarily be feeling when they are, in that state of anxiety. All right, in that moment they'll forget that, but that's temporal. Now, how can you do the same without indulging in harmful behavior? Okay, so like I said, number one, you need to find a safe space. It can be a professional safe space, or it can be a peer safe space. Okay, and also I'm also appealing to whoever is listening to us today, please be a safe space to somebody out there. You do not need to be a safe space for everyone, but you need to be a safe space for other people. And being a safe space for other people doesn't mean you begin to give them advice. Please, dear friends, this system of offering unsolicited advice when somebody is venting or is opening up is wrong. Okay, people begin to heal, people begin to feel better when they feel heard, when they are offered ears. Some people, all they need for them to heal is just to vent, somebody to listen to them for an hour or for 30 minutes, somebody who is just nodding, who looks at them in their eyes and in their face and is just nodding, following, listening to them. That's all that most people need. So if you've got somebody who comes to complain to you about unemployment, about their marriage, about different things, offer that safe space to listen to them. Do not rush to begin to tell them about how your mother dealt with this and that, how you think they should do this and that. Do not even rush to tell them, just pray about it. You're a Christian. I remember there was a time I was going through a rough patch several years back. And I opened up to somebody about it. I was like, I feel like giving up on life. Life is so unfair. Things are not going on well. Blah 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 blah. I told them, and you know what? This female friend of mine that time told me to say, if a pastor like you can feel that way, how much us who are not pastors? And I'm like, really? Is that what you can tell me? And trust me, that's how my friendship with that lady ended, because I felt so unsafe. Later on, I felt like these are the reasons. These are the people that usually lead others to commit suicide by such misguided answers. So reach out to somebody. Apart from that, involve yourself in sports. Okay, if you can. If you cannot, you can just take a walk every day, or at least a minimum of 3 days in a week. Take a walk. Okay, it can be 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. Okay, when the body is active, it releases happy hormones. Okay, apart
Okay.
from that,
All right.
journaling, huh?
Please keep on.
Yeah, journaling. So find a journal or a diary where you can be writing your emotions. You write your emotions now. Research has proven that whenever human beings write down their thoughts or their emotions, they externalize their pain or they externalize their emotion. So if you're going through anxiety, you're going through stress, and you begin to journal your thoughts, you begin to journal your emotions in a diary or in a journal, it will make the burden lighter. You feel better by so doing. Then also, for those who are religious, you can practice prayer is also a good thing for those who are religious. Then also meditation helps. And then the last one, of course, not the least, but the last one I'd like to mention is deep breathing exercises. So deep breathing exercises is where maybe you breathe in, take a deep breath in, you hold it, and then, for example, you can breathe in through your nose, not without opening your mouth, and then hold the breath, maybe for 5 seconds, and then you breathe out through the mouth only, and then you breathe out slowly. So you keep repeating this maybe for 10 minutes, and in that moment you'd feel better. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Darius. Now, quickly, this one now, Mr. Darius, please be as brief as possible. Time is not with us. I know there's a lot of information to be laid out. I say it brief, but I asked one question and we've gone, which is very, very good because that is information that we need. But I guess we should have, through the chair and the director of the show, we hope to have another episode of this. But just quickly to go through the other three messages that I have, I pray that I can be able to combine them. And Mr. Darius, you can answer the three in one so that we can quickly get to um, wind up the show due to time. So the other message is coming from Lubasi, and Lubasi is saying, what are simple everyday ways to manage anxiety when therapy or professional help isn't easily available? I feel this is just something that you were just previously talking about on the techniques, and this is quite similar. So for this question, I think we can refer to the other, unless if Mr. Darius has something to add on top of it.
No, 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 no,
The
no.
fourth
It's already
question,
been
Mr.
tackled.
Darius, you're going to answer to Okay, it's already tackled. Thank you. So the other one would be, how do I deal with self-doubt and feeling of not doing enough? Also, when I'm asking to speak in public, how can I overcome that stress? So this will be the first question, probably how to overcome stress when I'm about to speak in public. So I don't think she's not confident and she's stressed in that way. Then the last question from my end before my main host comes in to ask your last question. This is something that you talked about. Your reaction to it was you literally stopped talking to that friend because they told you to go and pray. But then in this scenario, I'm sure after that experience and maybe a little reflection to what happened, you'll probably have another way on how to go about it. So the question is similar to your experience. This is from Misozi, and this is our last question. So Misozi is saying, what can I do when people around me don't understand mental health or just say, pray about it without really listening to me?
I'll start with the last one. Unfortunately, we live in a mental health illiterate society. So some things you'd have to bear the responsibility yourself, unfortunately. All right. These are people who think telling you to be strong, telling you to pray, telling you to just forget about it. These are people who think that's the solution, right? So unfortunately, you'd have to bear that responsibility yourself. So in short, if you cannot find the help with those people, look for it elsewhere. The challenge of insisting on those people offering you the help is that they may never help you and it may make the situation worse. So in my case, what I did was when that friend who did not come through for me, when she did not offer this, give me the space to feel heard, feel validated, I found somewhere else. I looked for somewhere else where I was heard. And yeah, there was another friend that I ended up befriending that was there for me. I could call him and we could talk for 1 hour, sometimes even 2 hours on the phone, and you just listen to me. And eventually it helped me. Okay, so that's it. Then the first one, remind me the question again, the first one.
The other question was when in self-doubt and not feeling like I'm not doing enough,
Okay,
how
I've
can I
remembered it.
stress?
Yes. All right, I've remembered it. So there's so many ways we can deal with that. We do that in therapy, but I'll give you two answers, and I'll try to be brief. So number one, do you know that the most important voice that you need is the voice, that inner voice that you have? What you tell yourself is more important than what people tell you. All right. So how do you train your inner voice? I mean, how do you change that inner voice? Because what is making you have a lot of self-doubt is there is that inner voice that tells you you're not beautiful, you're not the best, you're not, you will fail. There's that inner voice. So what do you do to counter that? You need to train it. And the training takes time, but you need to be patient with yourself. Eventually, you'll get there. So number one, you need to say the exact opposite of what the voice is telling you. Okay, so for example, if the voice is telling you, to doubt yourself, doubt the way you look, doubt this and that, just write down the exact opposite of that and state it and say it. So don't say it in your heart, say it verbally. All right. I practiced that with my therapist 4 years ago when I had a lot of self-doubt. I was going to write an exam, and because of self-doubt, I was failing to study. When I would hold a book, I would just shiver. I would not study. And she just told me to say, what do you want to achieve? I said, I want to be able to study. What else? I said, I want to understand whatever I'm studying, and I want to remember them. Then she said, what else? And I want to pass. So then she said, the three things you've said, say them again. I said it. I want to study. I want to study and understand. And then I want to pass. Then she said, say it again. I kept on saying that. She told me to say it for about 21 times. And then after I finished saying that, I felt I felt so relieved, and I even went and held the book and I started studying and understood. Of course, I'm not saying that it's going to miraculously going to work for you there and then. For me, I don't know why it worked there and then. Okay, but every now and then I got to have challenges that were bordering on self-doubt. Or if I want to speak before people and I'm so anxious, I'm so stressed, I would always practice that. Then the last one is that before you present, if it's a presentation, before you present it to people out there, okay, ensure that you practice it in your room. Imagine you are already speaking to them. Give that speech or give that presentation to an invisible audience. Okay, do it maybe 5, even up to 10 times. Okay, now what you're doing is you're making your mind get used to the idea of presenting, such that by the time you are presenting the 5th or 10th time to this invisible audience, you would have gotten used. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darius. I think this was one of my best shows. You've really dissected today's topic on mental health and young people and how us young people can deal with stress and anxiety from explaining what stress is, being the body and mind bearing more than it can handle, to what anxiety is, being just persistent fear, and just some things that cause or can be signs of stress and anxiety, such as insomnia, drinking problems, hypersexual disorder, isolation, just to mention a few. And then coming up to also give us with coping mechanisms, such as simple things that we can do in our day-to-day lives. For instance, going on a short walk, journaling, praying about it, meditation, and deep breathing exercises. And finally, two most important points that you just highlighted, our inner voice. If we have negative thoughts that we constantly have, such as telling ourselves that I can't do it, I'm not beautiful, I'm not able, you just train your inner voice positively and do the exact opposite. And finally, if you're trying to, maybe you're stressed or anxious about presenting in front of many people, start by presenting in your room. Start by doing dummies in terms of having an invisible audience and practicing your public speaking skills. Mr. Darius, this was such an amazing session. I've just seen his dropped off. Our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to today's topic. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube at TYP, and also www.theyouthplatform.org. And catch us on our socials at the Youth Platform. It's been such an amazing show. Thank you so much for your engagement. Thank you so much for your questions. Stay tuned and see you. Bye bye.